Hello, and welcome to this week's edition of Wealth After Work, the show bringing you to and through your retirement. I'm your host, Kristen Oakley, and joining me in the studio is Josiah Grauso. He is the Vice President and Senior Financial Advisor at ASC Financial Group, and Taylor Munoz, Senior Financial Advisor. We've got a great show for you today, and we want to kick off today's discussion with a very important question for you, which is, when it comes to your taxes, are you looking at them through the windshield of your retirement or in the rearview mirror? Now, we're going to explain what we mean by that, but one of the things that really sets Josiah and Taylor and the team of ASC Financial apart is that they engage in strategic tax planning for you. So we're going to get into all of that today because so many folks are playing a game when it comes to taxes that they have no idea how to play, and it's getting really dangerous for them, right, guys?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Nothing's certain in life and death. There's nothing's certain in life except for death and taxes.
Right. Yes.
Well,
but that's what Ben Franklin said. But I think that's interesting that you bring that up, Taylor, because the way he said that, death is something that we obviously have no control over, right? Mm-hmm. But because he grouped taxes with that, it also makes folks think that taxes are something that they don't have control over, but actually you can. And this is what you love doing for folks. So as we begin today's conversation, I'd love for you to explain the difference between engaging in tax preparation and engaging in strategic tax planning.
Yeah, Kristen, again, great being here. I think we're going to have an absolute blast today. But so when you talk about tax preparation here, Kristen, that's what you mentioned is kind of looking in that rear view mirror, okay? Mm-hmm. So that's really filing last year's taxes and documenting based on what already happened. However, strategic tax planning is kind of looking at the windshield, okay? Looking through the windshield, and it's making some moves today to reduce tomorrow's tax bill. And the other way I kind of like to give an analogy here is think about this, like tax preparation is sort of like an archaeologist,
yes.
Okay?
Yep.
That's where they're really looking back at the past and recording history. Mm-hmm. However, strategic tax planning, on the other hand, is more of like an architect, okay? Who's designing future taking a look at the future for some tax advantages that we have. Mm-hmm. And this is why it really matters. The bulk of us have most of our wealth, our money in these retirement accounts, 401ks, IRAs, 403bs. And those are all really tax-deferred vehicles, okay? Mm-hmm. That means we haven't really paid tax on that money yet. And so understanding what we have today in a tax environment that we know, if we take some strategies and some steps today, we really could help protect against some future tax rates that are going to be in the future that we really have no control and we don't know where that's going to be. Understand right now, our government, our country, we are over $36 trillion of debt. And yes, Taylor, that's a T, okay, in trillion dollars of debt that we've got. And so understanding that right now today, we are probably the third lowest tax brackets that we've ever had in our history. And so that's why we really want to make sure we're taking advantage of it. Mm-hmm. Now, we talk about that, and I know Congress did just pass the big, beautiful bill,
right?
Okay, we don't always know exactly what's inside of it right now, but so all that did is we made sure we do know that the Job Act and tax cuts of 2017 have now been put into law. That's been permanent. But here's one of the things. If the IRS and the government changed the rules before, they can do it again. Mm-hmm. And we talk about that debt that we have, that's going to be a really big concern. And so what I always want to say is, do we want to have some of our money that Uncle Sam always has access to and they're in control of as that partner raising that share? Or do we want to start getting them out of our pockets and shifting it that it's insulated, it can never again be taxed?
Right. And I know that's what we're going to spend a lot of this segment talking about, are the solutions to help folks go ahead and reduce their tax bills. But I think awareness is the first step. So many people aren't aware of the problem that they're facing from a tax perspective with their retirement. So that's why we encourage you to visit this awesome site that the group of ASC Financial has put together for you. It's completely free and complimentary for you to use. Simply go to asctaxtest.com, or you can click that QR code. Walk us through and explain what folks are going to glean when they visit that site.
Yeah, I mean, when folks use this site, they're going to be able to see the impact of their future RMDs, that's required minimum distributions. They're going to be able to see the overall tax exposure that they have, right?
Mm-hmm.
As Josiah mentioned, throughout our working careers, we contribute to tax-deferred accounts.
Mm-hmm.
That's 401ks, 403bs, IRAs, for some maybe a 457 plan through their workplace.
Mm-hmm.
And on the front end, you don't pay tax on those monies, but when you pull them out, you're going to pay a tax. And whether you need the money or not, at some point in the future, the government's going to say, we don't care, you must start pulling the money out, and you must start paying us back the taxes that you haven't paid yet.
Right.
And so that's where, one very practical strategy that's often talked about that may make sense for some of our viewers at home is exploring what it looks like to do a Roth conversion, right? There's Roth contributions and there's Roth conversions. If I want to contribute to a Roth account, there are some income limitations. However, anybody can begin converting their what we call the forever taxed accounts, IRAs, 401ks, 403bs, into never taxed accounts, meaning we're going to a conversion. We're making those monies now tax-free. Now, there's no way around the tax. We still have to pay the tax on the front end. But as Josiah had mentioned, if we have a government that has historic amounts of debts, and we know that historically we are at one of the lowest tax brackets overall in our nation's history, then we have a window of opportunity right now to begin potentially paying that tax at today's rates if we feel, and it's very likely, but at least we feel that tax rates may go up in the near future. Even if the big, beautiful bill cemented some of those tax rates or tax cuts for now, nothing is ever truly permanent in Washington, right? So we want to make sure if we're going to proactively plan for our tax exposure, we know that we can start getting the government out of our business now, paying the tax at a known rate today, assuming that control, instead of whatever that rate may or may not be in the future. So a Roth conversion is a strategy that a lot of folks may find helpful to at least go through the exercise of saying, does it make sense for me?
Right.
We just helped actually a couple that came into our office recently in their late 60s convert about $200,000 of tax-deferred money to tax-free through a Roth conversion, strategically making sure that they did that within their current tax bracket. So there's a lot of strategy that goes into place. It's why it's important to work with an advisor to do that, a fiduciary advisor, to work with folks to really strategize about how best to go through a conversion towards tax-free. We also say that, there is a degree of urgency if folks are considering doing this, because the longer you delay a conversion, the more your tax-deferred money continues to compound.
Yes.
So all those tax-deferred accounts are continuing to grow, meaning that eventually that distribution that you're required to pull out is going to be higher as well, and you're going to be paying more in tax back to the government.
Right.
And so we want to make sure that we take advantage of the lower tax brackets we have now and begin planning proactively to do that. So that's where we say that, as a viewer, if you are approaching retirement, if you're in retirement, you can either be the architect of your own plan, or you can let the government do the planning for you. And we probably don't really like what the government has in store for us when they do the planning. So that's where we offer a retirement income analysis. We encourage you to go to the ASC tax test site to see your specific situation, what are the tax implications of your money. But even beyond that, you could, by making a call to us to start that consultation, to just do a retirement income analysis, that's going to be a powerful tool for you to see the tax exposure of your money, the risk that you're taking, what's my risk exposure if the market goes down, what fees am I paying, and perhaps most importantly, am I maximizing income for my retirement? And ultimately, when we go through this process of tax planning with you, we want to make sure that we're maximizing what you keep and minimizing what Washington gets. So we'd encourage you to reach out for a complimentary, absolutely no obligation retirement income analysis so that you have a powerful tool to take control of your financial income picture.
Wonderful. Taylor, Josiah, thank you so much. No doubt once folks visit asctaxtest.com, they're going to be blowing up your phones and saying, help me figure out how to reduce this potential tax bill throughout the rest of my life. So we encourage you to reach out to the team of ASC Financial Group and schedule your complimentary retirement income analysis today. 844-918-4867 is the number to call. Or if you'd rather connect online, simply scan that QR code and that will get you connected as well. Stay with us. We've got some more top retiree concerns to tackle and what that means for you right after this.
Our money goes through 3 phases throughout our lives. We accumulate it, we protect it, and then we distribute it.
Most people entering retirement, they're taking way too much risk.
We take a look at where they currently are. In the positions and the accounts that they have, is that enough? Is it generating enough income for them in order to achieve those goals and aspirations?
A successful retirement basically says, I am giving permission to spend money.
It's being able to do everything you have in retirement without worrying of, do I have enough money?
It's us focusing on what are the things in retirement that we want to do, that we dream of doing, that we never got to do while we were working.
Being able to spend more time with their grandchildren, be able to travel.
At the end of the day, we don't want a one-size-fits-all for retirement. We dive into, an individual's needs. It's really a forensic approach to income planning.
Welcome back to Wealth After Work. I'm Kristen Oakley here with both Josiah and Taylor from ASC Financial Group, and we are so glad that you're joining us today. If you're just tuning in, we just talked a lot about taxes in the first segment. Obviously, tax risk is at the top of most retirees' minds, but there's a lot of other huge risks that are keeping retirees up at night. We want to address these risks because if you have the proper plan in place and can get ahead of them, it can make all the difference in the success of your retirement. So the next risk that we want to address is something known as longevity risk. And this is really the biggest domino. I feel like this one risk alone affects all the other risks that retirees face. And just to give a quick fun example, some of you might have heard the sweet woman Elizabeth Francis in Houston, Texas, who passed away at the age of 115. But what the crazy part of that story was, is she was currently living with her 95-year-old daughter. And what a sweet story that was. But my gosh, we are living longer than we ever have before, and we have to plan for that.
Yeah. Back in the day, the goal was to get to retirement. Right now, the goal is to get through retirement.
Yes.
Right. Back when Social Security first began, average life expectancy was around 60. Now it's 77, and if you live to 65, it could be 85 and beyond. Where we're living well into our 90s. So, longevity risk. That is probably the number one thing that Josiah and I hear from folks that come in our office is, do I have enough?
Right.
Is there a potential that I could outlive my retirement income? And that is the number one concern that we work to help folks guard against and plan proactively for with strategies that create renewable income. That's our goal. There was a study that was done and it was released last year. It's updated every 2 years that looks at folks' biggest concerns in retirement. And the fear of outliving one's retirement income ranked higher than death in that poll.
I believe it. Yeah.
And so folks are more concerned about what does it mean to run out of money in retirement than to actually die. And so that is a very real reality. And that's something that we help folks work through every day. At the end of the day, we don't want a retirement income strategy for anyone to rely on the ups and downs of the market. We want predictability. We want certainty. We don't want to rely on spending down principal in our retirement and hoping that it grows back. Right. And if we're now in retirement and we have less ability to stomach risk, we have a shorter time frame to recover, we're not working anymore and still contributing, we want to make sure that we've both mitigated our risk, we've minimized the risk, and we're maximizing the income that we get. And so that's why an income-centric, income-first approach is so critical, because we're looking at how do we create renewable streams of income? How do we weather those downturns? We also talk about the go-go years, right?
Yes,
that initial 10 to 15 years of our retirement, for a lot of folks, those are our healthiest years, right? Those are the years that we dreamed of doing something, the experiences that we want to have, right? And we're ready to go.
Yep.
Go years. We don't want to spend a portion of those go years, trying to recover from loss or feeling like we can't spend our money because the market dropped drastically before, the year of or a couple years into our retirement. So we want renewable, maximizing the income from our interest and dividends and other income generating assets, not relying solely on growth and whether that growth will be there or not in a given year.
And it just makes sense to have that strategy in place. But we know so many folks, this is what keeps them up at night, this fear of, do I have enough? Am I going to run out? I think equally as tragic is when people don't enjoy those go years because they're so bound up in fear of, I don't have the confidence that I can spend this money today and still be okay in the future. But that is what you help folks do by building these solid retirement income plans. And again, longevity risk, that's a big one, right? It's kind of the risk multiplier. Talk about some of the other risks that you help folks mitigate through your planning.
Yeah, Kristen. So some of the other big risks that people focus on is things like inflation, market volatility, as well as unexpected expenses, things like healthcare costs or concerns that we have. So inflation can slowly erode your purchasing power, what you have. And then market volatility, one of the keys from there is we may have to sell investments at a loss if we are relying on that portfolio to provide us for income. And that's why we feel one of the best ways we have to mitigate these risks and these concerns is a portfolio that's designed to focus on stable, renewable, and reliable income that we have. And the key is that that's also preserving our principal. So that means we may need to reposition a little bit from some of our higher growth-oriented investments into a strategy that's really designed for maximizing income, things with strong interest or dividends that we have that says regardless what the market throws at you, we know we can sustain and we can protect that. For example, let me tell you a couple of my clients here. Randy and Beth from Mount Pocono. Randy worked for Sanofi Pasteur that we have, or Sanofi, depending on however you say it from there.
Right.
A couple different ways people say it that they're in the Poconos. But, while they were working, every time the market had this bump and had this fluctuation, they started to have a lot of anxiety. They started to have some fear. What happens right before I'm about to retire that we have? And so when they came in to see us, we developed their retirement income analysis, and we were able to restructure away from some of these larger risks that they had in the market into more reliable income that says, hey, we're going to take all of the income we need from reliable, renewable income sources. And they were able to take that money out for their expenses without having to touch their principal. And so it really gave them that kind of peace of mind knowing that they were set in a solid place. And so if you're approaching retirement, if your concerns of any of these risks that we've talked about, whether it be longevity, market risk, some of the areas of taxes that we have here, I'm going to encourage you to pick up the phone, give us a call at the number below. Let us sit down with you. Let us provide you this retirement income analysis, focusing on 4 key areas. What are the taxes that we're focusing on? What are the fees that we're paying? And most importantly that we have here, what is this market volatility that we're taking? And do we have enough income to maximize what we want to do for our retirement? So I'm going to encourage you to pick up the phone, give us a call below. Let us set up a time to discuss any of these areas of concerns that you may have.
Wonderful. Josiah Taylor, thank you so much. To our viewers at home, that number to call is there for you on the bottom of your screen, 844-918-4867, and that's how you can get your complimentary retirement income analysis scheduled for yourself. Or if you'd rather connect online, simply scan that QR code and that will get you connected as well. We'll be back with more right after this.
Did you know Uncle Sam might be your partner in retirement? It's true. If you have a 401k, IRA, pension, or similar retirement accounts, they're all tax targets. But how much? Get our easy-to-use tax calculator and plug in the numbers. Go to ASCtax taxtest.com and find out your potential tax liability.
Welcome back to Wealth After Work, where today we've been discussing the importance of engaging in strategic tax planning for your retirement, along with some of the serious concerns that today's modern retiree faces. And it's interesting, guys, there was a recent study that we want to cite here. This was a modern retirement study conducted back in 2021 by the American Advisors Group. And they found that inflation and rising costs of living have left many older Americans worried about their post-career finances, and rightly so. Nearly 40% of today's seniors believe their generation had a harder time achieving retirement than their parents did. We understand why that is, with things like pensions going away, Social Security not being enough, right? And nearly 1/3 currently believe that they will outlive their money. And that's heartbreaking to read, because all of us here at this desk know that with the right planning and the proper plan in place, this can be greatly reduced and folks can have that confidence. So how do you help your clients move from this fear state into being confident? Because this is what you do day in and day out.
This is exactly what we do. We hear all of the anxieties, the concerns. I mean, these statistics are real that we see here. But one of the big reasons is something you touched on here, Kristen, is that that anxiety is there because this retirement landscape has completely changed. For our viewers at home, their parents, many of them had these defined benefit plans, these pensions. And what that did is it took the risks of longevity and retirement, it was on the employers, okay? Now we've shifted. We've started coming out with these defined contribution plans, 401ks and 403bs. And what that has inadvertently done is shifted that retirement risk, that longevity risk, from the employer to the employee now. And so as we take a look at it, if I'm 25 years away from retirement and the market drops 30, 40%, I'm not overly concerned. Why? Because I've got time to make up those drop downs of the market.
Yep.
But if I'm only 5 or 10 years from retirement and the market drops 30 or 40%, now I'm starting to stress. Now I'm starting to have a lot more anxiety. I'm starting to have that's a greater level of concern. And again, that's why it's so imperative that we've got to take that shift from these higher growth oriented vehicles. Okay, again, 401ks are designed to attract and retain younger workers. They are growth-oriented vehicles. But if we can now focus on renewable, stable income streams that we have here, we're able to focus on things that are more dependable, interest and dividends that we have. It really helps alleviate that concern and that anxiety that we have. It's all about restoring that pension-like confidence that we have with really not actually having a pension.
Yeah, no, it's so true. And I think that is so helpful to have it in writing when you can see where your income's coming from, right? Yeah. This is why you all offer this complimentary retirement income analysis, to be able to see it in writing, see it on paper, know that you're going to be okay. That's a game changer. So do you often find, I'm sure a lot of folks come to you and they have these concerns we've talked about today. They're stressed out, it's keeping them up at night. But once you build the plan for them, are they ever shocked to find out that they're actually in a better position than they thought they were?
Yeah, and we like to use the word strategy rather than plan, right? Because strategies evolve, plans can fail, right? And inadvertently, we have to use the word planning, and we do plan.
Sure.
But we want renewable income strategies for folks. And I think one of the most rewarding parts for us as advisors when we sit down with people is where they can finally make the connection to know, oh, I have enough, right? Because we're so conditioned to this idea of grow your money, grow your money, grow your money.
What's your number, right?
What's your number?
Yeah.
I've spoken to other advisors and I've said, what is your approach when somebody enters retirement? And sometimes their response isn't much different than somebody who's 35 versus 65. Well, we're going to continue to grow the money. And when we get to retirement, it's not about how much we've accumulated. It's about how do we take what we've accumulated and how do we transfer that into an income-generating machine, right? And so, we do find that when folks come in, when we do this retirement income analysis, folks typically fall into one of three categories. And full disclosure, most folks don't fall into the first category, and that's everything's perfect. There's nothing that we need to change, right? But we find that the second category, well, there's something that we can optimize, whether it's optimizing for more income, or maybe it's optimizing to reduce the risk that they're taking, or a little bit of both. Then the third category is, hey, there's something more fundamental going wrong that we need to address. But a lot of folks fall into that middle category where there's always something that we can optimize. And when we go through the retirement income analysis and we show what an income-centric, income-first approach looks like, how you can take what you've accumulated and now make that into a paycheck, right? Because now that we're retired, we're relying on what we've saved to pay us a paycheck and to do so sustainably. When you see that income-first approach, that's where the light bulb goes off and folks really go, wow, now I understand it's not just about growing, it's also about distributing the money. And I would say probably number one risk that we see, or number one mistake that we see with folks is that they're invested the same way preparing for retirement as they are in retirement. And that's a big mistake.
Yes.
Because as we already talked about earlier in the show, those early years, we have the time horizon. And when someone says you're in it for the long haul, that's fine if you're in your 20s, 30s, maybe 40s.
Right.
Then we get into the 50s, and then we get even closer, we get in that red zone of that 5 to 10 years out from retirement. And that's when the priority must shift.
Yes.
And if someone's not having that conversation with you as a viewer, then that's really critical that you start having that conversation and start doing a deep dive into how do I take what I've accumulated and make it work for me. I'll just briefly end with, we had a couple that came in on that note. They came in, I say they kind of had what I'd call a Goldilocks portfolio, right? Not too much, not too little, just about right to meet their income needs in retirement. We went through the income analysis. We showed what it meant to put income first. And when they were leaving, it still stands out to me. The husband came up to me and goes, I was expecting to leave here today feeling bad about the position that we're in. But he goes, I actually feel pretty good. And I mean, and it wasn't anything super profound, but it was like, wow, that's exactly what we're looking to achieve with every single person that we work with. We want you to feel confident in the strategies that you have. We want to go through that retirement income analysis with you. That one call can be the difference, can make a huge difference for how long your income lasts and what kind of strategies you have in place. And so again, we encourage you to reach out to us to get that retirement income analysis so that you can begin, again, taking control, seeing how much risk you're taking, how much income you can be making in retirement, and optimize so that you develop an income stream that you cannot outlive. So please give us a call at the number on the screen or scan the QR code below. We'd love to have that conversation with you.
Taylor, Josiah, thank you so much. And thank you for watching. We appreciate you being here. We'll see you next time here on Wealth After Work.